So it was in 1973 that a case was brought to the Supreme Court by a woman named Norma McCorvey, also known as Jane Roe. She was a resident of Texas, and Texas did not allow abortions unless the life of the mother was in danger. So Norma McCorvey found herself pregnant for the third time. She did not want to have the child. She was unemployed or underemployed and couldn't afford to travel to a state where abortions were possible. So she sued to have the right to have an abortion in Texas. And that lawsuit went all the way to the Supreme Court that ruled 7-2 in her favor. And that ruling was based on the 14th Amendment and the constitutional right to privacy. That's what the 14th Amendment is about, the constitutional right to privacy. And the court's view, the court's ruling, was that the right to privacy included a woman's right to make medical decisions about her own health, including whether or not to have a baby. And that ruling only applied to abortions in the first trimester. Individual states could make their own laws about the second and third trimesters. But as that ruling happened, 46 states had to change their laws. Back up just a little bit. So in 1970, 3 years before Roe v. Wade, there were approximately 300,000 legal abortions performed. According to the CDC and the Guttmacher Institute, the year after Roe v. Wade, which was 1973, there were about 744,000 legal abortions performed. In 1980, that number was about 1.3 million. And there was a sharp rise, right? And what was it about that sharp rise that made that happen? Because so many illegal abortions were now being performed legally. That number peaked in 1990 at about 1.6 million, but I found this very interesting. After 1990, it declined every year until 2017. By 2017, the number of abortions had declined by almost 50%. What was the reason for almost 30 years of decline? Primarily wider access to birth control and sex education in schools. Now, from 2017 to 2022, numbers rose slightly, primarily because of medication abortions and telemedicine. Then in 2022, the Supreme Court ruled in the Dobbs case, overturning Roe v. Wade and ending the federal constitutional right to first trimester abortion. Now, that decision gave the power to regulate abortion back to the states. And within 3 months of that ruling, 14 states had shut down all clinics that provided abortions. And the number of terminated pregnancies dipped slightly for about a year, then increased 11% from the 2020 levels, which is interesting. Why? Why would there be an increase after Dobbs? Mostly due to medication abortions and telemedicine. One really important question is, why do women seek abortions? And again, the Guttmacher Institute provides the most in-depth data around this. For less than 1% of women, they say that they are seeking an abortion because of rape or incest. That's less than 1%. For 1 to 2%, it's because of fetal anomaly. I mean, something's gone wrong with the baby's development in the womb. For 2 to 4% of women, it's because of a risk to the mother's life. Her life is in jeopardy because of the pregnancy. Which means that 93 to 96% of women choose to terminate a pregnancy for personal reasons, or maybe for socioeconomic reasons. And most of those women seek an abortion because contraception failed. Let's look at the different stances. Pro-life. The pro-life stance on abortion is grounded in this belief that human life begins at conception and that the unborn child has an inherent right to life, so ending that life would be morally wrong. And that core belief leads to seeking legal protections for the unborn and seeking restrictions or the complete prohibition of abortion. When it comes to legislation, most pro-life advocates push for stricter abortion laws at the state level. Some favor national abortion ban or national restrictions. And there's division, though, in the pro-life movement about sex education and contraception. Some pro-life advocates believe in strong sex education in schools and easy access to contraception. Others believe in abstinence-only education and that access to contraception only encourages sexual activity. Many pro-life advocates promote expanding crisis pregnancy centers and adoption options and resources for women to carry pregnancies to full term. The pro-choice stance is grounded in the belief that a woman has the right to make decisions about her own body, including whether to continue or end a pregnancy. And that right is seen as a matter of personal privacy. It's seen as equality, and that freedom, privacy, and equality is something that governments should not override in any way. Many pro-choice advocates distinguish between potential life and actual legal personhood. And they argue that the rights of the pregnant woman take precedent over the life of the developing fetus, especially in the early stages of pregnancy. When it comes to legislation, the pro-choice stance believes abortion should be legal, safe, and accessible nationwide. And like other medical decisions, it should be regulated for safety, but not restricted for moral reasons. Many pro-choice advocates support widespread access to contraception and sex education as ways to reduce unintended pregnancies and reduce abortion rates. And many accept restrictions on abortion at the stage of fetal viability. And fetal viability simply means that the baby could survive outside the womb even with medical help. And that is around 22 weeks. So here's my sense. My sense is that many of you lean toward pro-choice, and many of you lean toward pro-life. And you may be saying to yourself right now, how could a thinking Christian person hold an opposite view of my own? Let's talk about that. Let's take a minute and understand how thinking Christians could take completely opposite views. Let's look at the pro-choice position. I've met lots of thinking Christian people who are pro-choice. And what I found is that by and large, they're pro-choice because they deeply care about women. And they've heard stories. Some of them have lived stories. They've been with women and held them as they sobbed about consequences of a pregnancy that they didn't plan and didn't want and were terrified about what would happen in their lives. I've never met anybody who is pro-choice who has said, abortion is a great idea. Never. They generally say that it's the lesser of two evils. Some pro-choice people say, I would not personally have an abortion, but I believe that there are circumstances where having an unplanned child is a terrifying thing. It's so traumatic for a woman or the child that there should be an option for legal abortion. For example, there's the family that suddenly finds their 8th grade daughter is pregnant, and they can't imagine what raising a child at that age might do to her life. There's a young woman in the middle of her college career who finds herself pregnant, doesn't know what to do, and doesn't have any feeling for the young man who's the father. Or the woman in her 30s, barely getting by, and her birth control fails, and she has 2 other children and can't imagine how she's going to raise a 3rd child. The people I know who are pro-choice have taken that view because they feel such compassion toward the mother. They deeply care about women. Most are troubled by abortion, and they see life there in the womb, but the life of the woman is so much more visible. The pro-life people that I know are thinking Christian people that are that way because of their sense of compassion. They've taken that stance because of their sense of compassion and out of a sense of concern for the woman and the unborn child. And they say, yes, women have rights, but so do unborn future women and men. Some are people who would welcome a woman into their home and say, I'll take care of you. How can we help you? And they pray for women and they pray for unborn babies. These are people who see the development inside the womb, and they say, there is something amazing happening here. At conception, life begins, and if we embrace abortion, we are missing out on that amazing process. We're missing out on that life. The people I know that are pro-life ask the question, how is it that one woman could be pregnant and wants that child, isn't so excited about that child, that baby in her womb, and when the baby kicks, she'll ask perfect strangers to put their hand on her belly so they can feel it move, and yet another woman is pregnant and it's just a fetus, it's an invasion. They ask, how can it be both? In one case, a baby, in another case, just a piece of tissue. What's the difference? And you know the answer. The difference is whether that child is wanted or not wanted. They ask the question, is it right that we determine the value of life based on whether another human being wants that life or doesn't want that life? So what I'm trying to do there is just show you how thinking Christian people, compassionate, caring Christians, can come out on different places on this issue.